What exactly does Taehyung do when there's no camera on? And why does Jungkook's confession actually make HYBE nervous? Click it, watch it to the end, and don't forget to leave your comment, because what you're about to read, you won't guess. Why does Jungkook suddenly look so hesitant when he mentions Taehyung's name in the middle of a live interview? What does he really want to hide? Or rather, what could he finally no longer hide? Click the like button, write your opinion in the comments, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss updates that are getting more and more surprising every day. Because after this confession, the ARMY world will never be the same again. It all started with one short phrase that sounded almost like a whisper. He does this when he's alone, and no one knew, not even the staff. Jungkook said this in a light-hearted interview session that initially only discussed BTS members' routines when there were no public activities. But when Jungkook's turn came to tell something about Taehyung, the 2-second pause of silence was too conspicuous to ignore. The camera catches an uncharacteristic look in your eyes, doubt, wonder, then give in to a sense of wanting to talk. Fans may think this is just part of the members' hilarious interactions, but not this time. Because after Jungkook said the confession, not only did the atmosphere of the room become tense, but even the manager from HYBE, who was usually relaxed, immediately waved to the camera crew, asking them to cut in for a moment. But it's all recorded. It's gone viral. And it's been watched millions of times in less than 2 hours. What if there was a side of Taehyung that no one, not even the people closest to him, had ever seen? What if that side was so personal, so fragile, that even mentioning it could make Jungkook feel guilty? And what if that side, it turns out that it was already known by HYBE, but deliberately not announced for the sake of preserving the image? These questions are now resonating among the fan community. The discussion forums exploded. ARMY divided. Some said it was a joke. Others felt it was the beginning of a bigger revelation. A secret that had been kept secret by the system that shaped them into global icons. In the 1-minute 32-second video that is now widespread on various platforms, Jungkook speaks slowly but clearly. At first, he discussed how Taehyung likes to read poetry when he is alone. But then, after one short pause, Jungkook added, "But there's one other thing he does, and he always closes all the curtains before doing it." It is not explicitly explained what is meant, but Jungkook's facial expression, which suddenly became very serious, caused great speculation. What makes it Taehyung to close the entire curtain before doing something? And why does Jungkook look like he's sorry after saying that? HYBE, as usual, refused to give an official statement. But their silence actually raises more questions than answers, especially when it became known that some old posts from Taehyung showing snippets of his solo activities suddenly disappeared from the official platform. Is this a coincidence? Or some form of internal censorship? A former staffer who had worked during BTS World Tour in their early years leaked additional information, further bolstering the speculation. In an anonymous interview, he mentioned that Taehyung does have a personal ritual that he always performs in his hotel room before bed, even in the midst of a busy tour schedule. There is one specific request that he always asks the hotel manager, the source said. Make sure there is no active CCTV facing the window. Taehyung always asks for a room with light coming in from outside, but not from inside. It was as if he wanted the world to see him, but he didn't want to see the world again. This comment is electrifying. Because if it's true, it means that Taehyung has long set up his private space with an incredible level of control. But why? What is Taehyung doing behind that tightly closed curtain? And why is Jungkook mentioning it now? These questions prompted enthusiasts and industry watchers to reassemble the puzzle from pieces that had been considered unimportant. Like an old behind-the-scenes video of Taehyung refusing to go into the makeup room alone, or his expression that changes drastically every time the topic of privacy appears in a talk show. HYBE seems to realize that the storm has come. Some of their quick steps did not escape the observation of netizens. First, they changed the official thumbnail of the video interview. Secondly, they removed short clips from all controllable platforms. And third, most conspicuously, all of Taehyung's individual schedules involving personal experience segments were suddenly canceled or replaced with group segments. This only increases the suspicion that something is being hidden. Meanwhile, Jungkook himself has not issued any additional statements. However, an insider from the world of entertainment journalists claimed to have received indirect instructions from parties on behalf of HYBE's internal so as not to discuss too much about the Taehyung curtain. Because it is considered a personal issue, But the public can't stop speculating. Because when a secret is mentioned in the public sphere, even if it is not fully explained, it is no longer just privacy. It was already media consumption. And what made the atmosphere even more heated was the fact that a few days after the incident, Taehyung himself did an impromptu live stream from his hotel room. Without saying much, without mentioning anyone by name. But with one simple gesture, he stood up, closed all the curtains, and stared at the camera for 20 seconds before turning it off. What is the meaning of the action? What is a silent statement? Is it a challenge to the narrative that is now evolving? Or rather, a tacit confirmation? The fans also began to unpack the archives. Old videos, photos from the early debut era, comments from past interviews, all analyzed. Some fans suspect that Taehyung's habits are related to a childhood trauma that has never been discussed publicly. Some speculate that this is some kind of self-healing method that he does secretly. The situation was further complicated when a well-known public psychologist who has no ties to the K-pop industry commented in the media. He said that the habit of closing the curtains completely and creating a consistently closed space can be a form of response to feelings of insecurity or even dissociative behavior due to extreme public pressure. This comment, while not based on Taehyung's personal evaluation, made the situation worse. HYBE also immediately closed comments on some of their latest posts. Even in the official fan community app, topics surrounding Taehyung curtain are banned and automatically removed by the moderation system. This raises a new question. If this is just a normal thing, why is everyone so busy covering it up? Meanwhile, Jungkook, who at first only seemed to accidentally mention his best friend's habits, is now in the spotlight. Some fans felt he was guilty of leaking personal stuff, but others feel that this opens up a space of empathy for Taehyung's human side that has been wrapped in glamour and stage choreography. And here's the critical point. Is what Jungkook did a foul or liberation? And apparently, what made the fans even more surprised was not only the content of Jungkook's statement, but also how the media and agencies tried to silence him in a subtle but real way. A few days after the incident, fans noticed that BTS' official YouTube channel began filtering comments with the keywords curtain, privacy, and even the name Taehyung when combined with terms like alone, ritual, or Jungkook confess. That strict moderation isn't without reason, because in less than 72 hours, the small incident has morphed into a massive storm that touches not just the entertainment realm, but also deep-seated questions about narrative control, privacy rights, and power dynamics within the K-pop industry itself. Controversy broke out. An investigative report from an independent journalist previously known for exposing cases of staff rights violations at several K-pop agencies unexpectedly highlighted HYBE with a jarring headline. What is HYBE hiding from the public about Taehyung? The report states that since 2020, HYBE has a special internal protocol for dealing with psychological cases of high-stress members, but not all cases are announced or even handled transparently. One of the three sources interviewed anonymously hinted that one of the members with the code name V has an increased isolative behavior since the pandemic. Despite not mentioning his name explicitly, it didn't take long for the public to associate him with Taehyung, especially because code name V is a familiar identity for BTS fans. This is where emotions begin to boil. Does Taehyung not only have to bear the burden of being a global idol, but also have to shoulder the mental pressure in silence, and his agency chose silence for the sake of maintaining the image? Furthermore, in a live-stream discussion by an ex-variety show producer who had worked with BTS early in their career, a surprising confession emerged. He said, "There was a time when Taehyung asked us all to get out of the recording room, just so he could re-record his voiceover alone. We think it's because he's a perfectionist. But now, I wonder, is it really a matter of audio quality, or a matter of wanting to be invisible while being herself?" This speech went viral in a short time. And with virality comes an unstoppable wave of opinions, from the defending to the blaming. Not a few fans think that Jungkook has violated personal trust. More vocal, however, is the wave of fans who feel that the Korean entertainment system, including HYBE, has created an environment where artists are forced to hide their human side in order to continue to perform perfectly. They say Jungkook's confession was not a betrayal, it was a veiled plea for help. Does this mean, then, that Jungkook is consciously divulging Taehyung's personal habits as a form of resistance to the system? Or is there another deeper reason? Some media analysts have even begun to speculate that the relationship between Taehyung and Jungkook, who have been known to be very close, may be experiencing internal tensions. There were moments in the previous show that are now being intensely revisited, especially when Jungkook was seen avoiding eye contact with Taehyung during a press conference session in Japan last year. Fans who used to think it was normal now see it as an illegible red flag. Is there something going on behind the scenes between the two of them? Is Taehyung's habit that Jungkook leaked just the tip of the iceberg of a bigger rift? This speculation was unstoppable, especially after rumors emerged that a photo shoot for a major advertisement in Europe that should have involved both of them was cancelled unilaterally by the agency. No reason. Without clarification. Only a short announcement. The schedule is rearranged. But for the public, schedule reset is no longer just an ordinary term. In the midst of this controversy, the phrase sounds like, "We are calming the storm." This is where the greatest irony lies. In a world full of cameras and highlights, it is precisely that no one really knows what is going on between two best friends, two global stars, two names that for millions of fans are the epitome of mutual warmth, trust, and strength. And as this storm gets bigger, the question arises, where is HYBE? If they know about Taehyung's habits and the mental stress he may be going through, why is there no transparency? If they know that the relationship between Jungkook and Taehyung is starting to fray, why keep insisting on their shared agenda in front of the camera? Is it because business is more important than humanity, while the public awaits an official statement? Some theories are moving in darker directions. There are those who suspect that Jungkook's leaked statement is not accidental, but a form of silent rebellion. That Jungkook, who is known to be the most sensitive and honest among the other members, may no longer be able to pretend that everything is fine. Does this mean there will be more revelations from Jungkook in the future? Is Taehyung's silence a form of disappointment, or a tacit approval of what his best friend is doing? A comment from the International Army community on Twitter became very viral because it voiced unrest that not everyone dared to say. "We don't want them to be perfect. We just want them to be free." If Jungkook talks, then maybe it's because Taehyung can't. And if HYBE is scared, then it's probably because ultimately their voices are stronger than the narrative the company is shaping. With over 2 million likes and thousands of retweets, this comment is symbolic of one important thing. The world has changed, and idols can no longer be contained in flawless, perfect narratives. Now the focus is on HYBE. The world awaits not just clarifying statements, but also accountability for all the pressure, for the privacy that is hidden, and for the relationships between people that are commodified for the sake of image. Because if Jungkook dares to open one veil, then we have to ask, how many other veils are there that have only been held back so far so as not to fall? And if Taehyung chooses silence, is it because he's not ready to talk? Or because he knows once the truth comes out, there will be no turning back? And here's the part HYBE least wants to hear. The more they try to silence the public, the louder the voices echo. When the system thinks silence is completion, the reality is quite the opposite. Silence is an invitation for the world to speculate, guess, and dig deeper. And now, all eyes are on one fact that can no longer be denied. Jungkook has opened a gap, and through that gap, the world sees that there is something that has been hidden. But it's not just about Taehyung and hotel room curtains. It is no longer just a matter of silent habits or hidden trauma. The story has moved in a much sharper and more painful direction. Because after the video went viral, other footage appeared longer, more sensitive, and more devastating. The footage shows a closed-door training session that took place at HYBE headquarters last year. In the video, which was never intended for public consumption, the voice of an alleged senior trainer is heard saying to a member, "Don't act like V. We don't have time to adjust to his emotions." That sentence was met with laughter from some of the other staff in the room. Jungkook's voice was also heard, not laughing, not responding. Just shut up. Is this just an internal joke? Or is this evidence that even within their closest circle, Taehyung is being ridiculed for his way of dealing with the pressures of life? And even more terrible, how many times has this kind of thing happened without a camera? What hurts the most is the realization that perhaps all this time we all watched a grandiose performance on stage without knowing how lonely the dressing room was behind it. Be that as it may, the cheers of fans outside the stadium never quite penetrate the inner silence of a person who has to hide who he really is. This controversy led many observers to accuse HYBE of creating an environment that regulates emotions, a term that describes how every action, expression, Even psychological response of an idol must fit into the framework of can be sold, can be watched, and does not damage the image of the brand. In a system like this, it's not just creativity that is controlled. Feelings are limited. A former production staff member of a popular South Korean reality show who worked with BTS said, "We were given special instructions not to show footage where Taehyung looks too quiet, pensive, or different from the other members. Moods. Not because it's not good, but because he says, fans just want to see happiness." The statement sparked great outrage. The international fan community began a #LetThemFeel and #ProtectVGated campaign, calling for all BTS members, including Taehyung, to be given space to showcase their human side without fear of being scolded by the agency or being manipulated by the narrative. But the campaign doesn't stop at Twitter. Some fans began demanding transparency from HYBE, not just about the mental well-being of the artists, but also about how the company manages the internal conflicts and psychological pressures of members living under the global spotlight. An international petition addressed to South Korea's Human Rights Commission to investigate the working conditions and privacy rights of K-pop artists has garnered more than 500,000 signatures in just 4 days. And what makes this even more provocative is how HYBE reacts to the pressure. They not only stood still, but began to rearrange the narrative. Suddenly, short videos showing Taehyung and Jungkook's warm moments began to appear on the official channel. Old footage showing their closeness was repolished and captioned dramatically. It's not a response, it's a maneuver. Many consider that this is a form of manipulation of public perception. It is as if the company wants to redirect opinion back to an idealized image of friendship and internal harmony. But unfortunately, for many fans, it was too late. A cracked image cannot be repolished with a filter, especially when the latest rumors mention that Taehyung is not only angry at Jungkook, but also disappointed in HYBE for letting the statement continue to spread without protection. A source from one of the fashion stylist teams that handled Taehyung's individual photo shoots leaked that the idol canceled several important photo shoots on the grounds that he didn't want to be photographed when his emotions were unstable. And this is not a trifle, because for a Taehyung who is known to pay so much attention to aesthetics, imagery, and the beauty of visual expression, refusing to be photographed is not just a matter of mood. It was a form of total rejection of the system, a silent, but very real form of resistance.